Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this personal experience video, I'm going to be talking about primarily Pluto moving through my fifth house, but I also want to talk about some other things that were going on at that time that definitely colored my experience. So keep in mind that Pluto is a generational planet, so he takes forever to tour all the zodiac. And I think it's like 248 years to tour all the zodiac. So he spends approximately 20 years in each sign and each house. So it's a long thing. And so I'm going to do my best to kind of organize how I feel like this showed up for me. I will say, so looking at my chart in Placidus, and I kind of scrolled back, Pluto entered my sign around January 2003 and left around February 1st, 2019, left my fifth house and went into my sixth. This is just approximations. So this is a long time. And so I had to think back, way back to 2003, but also 2019 wasn't that long ago. So I can remember a lot of other themes that were coming up. Pluto wants transformation, death and transformation. And some people say that Pluto says change or I'll change you. Like this is a non-negotiable. It's not like Saturn that's like, I'm going to make things hard and see if you figure it out. Pluto is like, I don't really care. This isn't working. We're changing. Pluto, therefore, will help us explore things very deeply. These areas will not be superficial. We often come out of a Pluto transit a different person with a different perspective, depending on the house placement, of course. So what is the fifth house? The fifth house is kind of the fun house. So lots of things here: love affairs, creativity, children, hobbies, pleasure, right? Literally like sexual pleasure, but just things you do for joy, things you find meaning in. It's the talents house. So it's entertainment. It's I think I said sex and sexuality. It's dating. It's love, right? It's the true love house. Doesn't mean there's going to be a commitment, but it is the love house. Fertility as well. Thank goodness I was on birth control during this time. So I would say for a majority of the Pluto transit in my fifth house, the area that I can recall the most being kind of lit up was my love affairs. So I was single. Well, I wasn't single in 2003. I had a relationship and then that ended around 2008. So basically from 2008 onward, I was single and had a lot of interesting experiences in dating and love and sex. As you can see, I've circled Pluto. It's actually this image, it at some point conjunct my natal Neptune, which we're also going to talk about because that definitely colored my experience. But I dated a lot of really elusive people. I dated people that were emotionally unavailable. I dated people who did not have my best interests at heart. I dated people that I wanted to fix. I dated people who lied, who were not honest, who were impulsive, who needed to be fixed essentially, right? Who had issues. And it was just, I mean, looking back, it was a lot. I don't regret it, but it wasn't easy because it brought up a lot of my own issues. And I think the reason why it brought up some of my own issues, as we can see, I also circled in pink, Saturn was moving through my second house. We know that the second house is a self-worth house. And I did not have a lot of confidence in myself. I didn't have any self-worth going into these relationships. And looking back now as a mature grown adult, I was seeking out these relationships for validation and security. I really was, and I didn't know it at the time. And then when they ended or didn't want me or it didn't work out, I felt just so empty after. I was also really drawn to people that were elusive, right? So it's not like everyone was totally elusive. Some people were very, here I am. I didn't really want those people. I wasn't really interested in them. I was only interested in the ones who ultimately would hurt me. And if you look also on this chart, I've circled in blue, we have Jupiter conjunct Neptune conjunct Chiron. So that's the fun little party pack. So let's backtrack a bit. So let's go back to the Pluto conjunct Neptune because it did do that at one point. So Pluto is transformation and change. Neptune is foggy and ethereal. Sorry, I always say that word wrong. And just confusing, right? There's no boundaries with Neptune. So during this time, I was fooling myself. I literally was fooling myself. And believe me, I questioned it, right? But it wasn't enough to make me like change, right? I needed the validation. I needed the self-approval so desperately that I wasn't able to like break out of that habit. I had to keep learning over and over again through heartbreak and just, when I look back at the people I chose, I'm kind of like appalled now. Like, oh my gosh, like what, like I'm not even the same person anymore, because there's no way I'd even be attracted to those types of people anymore. But I was deceived a lot, right? I believed what I wanted to believe. And I always just had this intuition. Like I had, and in one person I met in particular, I think that happened around 2000 and, I think it was around 2010. Really deceived me. And it was one of those relationships that like they love bombed, and if you have no self-worth and someone loves bombs you, you just think they're just the greatest thing of life. And that didn't last too long, right? A few months in, I realized this person's got some issues. They were emotionally abusive. They withheld sex. And what I realized later was that they need the rush of things. So they couldn't, maintain that type of connection with anyone probably. But again, that took a toll on my self-worth that was already, none, right? I didn't have any. And this person also ended up being charged with, luring underage women and taking advantage of them. So that was a bit of a kick in the gut when I found that out, because I just felt so stupid, right? Like, because I knew something was wrong with this person, because every time it was on and off, it was unstable. And anytime he was in my life, I got really bad stomach aches. And then when he was out of my life, I didn't have them. So my body was like trying to warn me, this person is not good. But I kind of wanted to just keep playing with fire to figure out like, what was wrong with this person? So that's the Neptunian energy there for sure. I also dated other people who were just kind of very elusive and secretive, and like I just knew that there was something else going on there. So I want to go back to the conjunction here, the Jupiter-Neptune Chiron conjunction, which I think definitely impacted my experience. So when we see Jupiter and Neptune, some people think this is so beautiful. It's in my 7th house, not surprisingly, but Jupiter expands, right? It can expand things for better or for worse. Neptune blurs things, right? And while yes, this combination can be, hearts and fairies, often it's not reality. You have to be very careful with that combination. And I just was in la la land when it came to meeting these people. I just kind of put them on pedestals and romanticized the connection until I was deceived or it didn't work out or whatever. And with Chiron there, Chiron is, our deepest wound. It's a deep sensitivity within us. And Chiron going through here, I believe, was showing me, these deep wounds. So these people were cracking me open to show me where I still needed to be healed. So I was attracting unavailable people. I was getting hurt after time and time and time again. And it took me multiple times to really look at myself and be like, I'm the common denominator in these relationships, right? Like what about me is drawing these people into my orbit. And so, I didn't learn that till later, so later into the transit, I would say, maybe around 2000, I think it was around 2013, 14. That's when I really saw a shift in my, definitely 13, I would say, a shift in who I attracted, because I had boundaries at this point. I'd learned boundaries. And actually I went way too far to the other end where I was like, I didn't want a commitment. I called the shots. I kept men at a distance. I was quite cold, that's not very warm and loving at all. And I ended up attracting someone that I ended up taking advantage of, actually. So I ended up attracting 2 people that I just wasn't my evolved self, and I didn't like who I was in those partnerships, and I became a very unkind person. So I kind of went back and forth here. So I definitely think that influenced that Pluto transit through my 5th for sure. And we could even add Uranus sitting there in the 8th, but I don't want to make this too complex. But I had to really experience these pains, these hurts to transform. So Over this time, I've never wanted children, but over the time that Pluto was in my fifth and left, I came to the solid decision that I didn't want children. There was maybe 1 or 2 points where I questioned it and decided that, no, I actually don't want children here. I was able to find my power when it came to dating and relationships. And then when I met my husband, I was standing in that truth and authenticity and those boundaries. And, I made him work a little for it, right? But I think it was good for me because prior I didn't make anyone work for anything. It was like, oh, you're cute. Okay. So, and I think that actually attracted my partner to me because it wasn't this easy thing and I had a sense of self-worth. So I definitely transformed how I show up in dating, love, and romance. This came way later in the transit, way later. I also discovered talents and my creativity. So I would say around 2006, 15, let's say 16, I got into tarot reading and dived much deeper into astrology and tarot reading, and started following transits more. I do tarot readings now on the side as a hobby. I ended up writing a book in, I think it was 2018, 19. I haven't published it and I don't know if I ever will, maybe one day, but it just poured out of me. It's a book on tarot. So lots of things with my talents, my creativity, and just Pluto's about taking your power back. And so I didn't recognize that I have these talents and these things that make me uniquely me. And I was actually afraid to show them to people too. So when I started reading tarot, I didn't tell anyone. I would hide my cards when we'd have people over. And now this is who I am. If it freaks people out, then, you can leave. So lots of transformation in terms of love, romance, sex, my views on children and being a mother, and my creative hobbies and talents. I have heard other people with this transit, become parents, right? They become parents, they become, notable in their field if they're like an artist or something. My experience was, I would say, heavily focused on dating and love. But again, given the ages I was, if you're experiencing this transit and you're like 80, it's going to be a little different than when you're, 18. So remember, Pluto's slow moving. So this, as much as Pluto can be intense, and I did have intense experiences with people, I forgot to add, I did date one person in here who was, I bet this person was probably, abusive. He was very unstable, and I actually had to block him out of my life because he, would stalk. This guy was not good. So, very intense relationships too. It was very, volatile. Passionate too, though. So you can attract those types of people in there, people that will abuse their power, and Pluto wants you to take your power back. And so that's essentially what I did over this span of time. But it wasn't intense. There were moments of intensity, but because Pluto is so slow moving, it's not like tomorrow your world falls apart unless you have some aspect to Uranus or something. So I feel like Saturn transits actually feel heavier because Saturn's only there for a few years, whereas Pluto is here for the long haul. So the transformation is gradual. It's not like overnight you're forced to change. So that is my Pluto moving through the fifth house in a snippet. Pluto is now in my sixth house, and I will definitely post. I already can see how it's showing up in sixth house matters, but I'm going to wait until Pluto is near done this transits and share it with you guys. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have Pluto moving through the fifth now, let me know. What's your experience? Have you noticed any of these topics coming up? I believe if you are a Virgo sun or Virgo rising, Pluto is moving through your fifth. So if you are going through some interesting experiences in your dating, love, children, affairs area, it possibly could be Pluto. And I ask you to reflect on where you need to take your power back in terms of those fifth house topics. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you experience a similar Pluto transit through the fifth. Let me know If you know someone else and you know what their experience was, I love to hear about other people's experiences, because I think it definitely adds to our knowledge and our self-awareness. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned for some more videos.